Yeah, what to say? Yeah, on the cheerful topic of potheads, marijuana users. Marijuana users are, well, the problem with marijuana, it affects the brain. And it makes people stupid. And the problem with that is, it's like when people are drunk. There's the old saying, in vino veritas, which means to say that in wine there is truth. So when people are drunk, they tend to lose control and babble the truth about things. And, well, yeah, the problem with, people who are stoned are often a bit like that, in a sense that they don't have any inhibitions. They have less inhibitions. And, so, people who are stoned, like people who are drunk, are very often doing crazy stuff, like, losing self-control, which might be going to bars, getting wild drunk, gambling all your paycheck, jumping in the car, going for a fast drive, drunk and stoned. That's the problem with marijuana. It tends to aid people in losing inhibitions. It also aids people in not, or just helps them not to think very hard about the consequences. And so, so in that sense you could see how drug might be a kind of marijuana might be a drug of choice for people who like to have orgies. But anyway, the thing is, people get addicted. A lot of people get addicted to marijuana their whole lives, and it's quite serious because a lot of heavy marijuana users can end up spending quite a lot of money on marijuana in their lives, and that's like $500 a week, up to $500 a week on their pleasures. And yeah, I've seen it time and time again. And because marijuana dulls the brain, it becomes a lot easier for pot smokers to fool themselves or talk themselves into things that aren't true, or to explain away, to just ignore, find ways to ignore arguments and demands made by other family members or other people in the community or other people in their society. Marijuana makes it a lot easier for people just to rationalize things, just make up lame excuses for doing what they do. And all my life I've seen that from potheads, to be honest, is lame arguments. They don't think very hard. They make up lame excuses for what they do all the time. And they lie. And when they can't make up a lame excuse, they lie and make up another lame excuse. And basically having a marijuana addict in your family or in your community or your business, it can be a disaster. It can be a total disaster to your life, because marijuana people spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars a week on pot, which because they're spending all this money, they obviously start cutting corners in other areas in their life, like not buying food for their family, or not buying clothes for their family, or not buying even luxuries for the kids, holidays or life improvements for the kids go out the door because they're expensive. And so the families of marijuana addicts have a constrained lifestyle because their other family members are spending so much of the budget on their pleasures, and it can get worse and worse. They can just not pay the rent, not pay the bills. The landlord comes round threatening expulsion from the property. The services get cut off. All the electronics on all the consumer goods that have been on hire purchase, the repo men come round for them, and this happens time and time again. This becomes fairly obvious to the family of the pothead, and so marijuana addicts as a community, they're not smart enough to work up some excuses themselves. So marijuana addicts have settled on this bag of excuses that they've made up to justify what they're doing, because they don't want to look like hedonists who are just destroying themselves and everyone else's life. They don't like that because they know pretty soon they're looking at divorce, or their friends just leaving them, their family and friends just going away and living elsewhere and not contacting them, and that can involve not having money, and which is what a lot of desperate pot addicts do, is they will spend their wages and their partner's wages or the wife's wages, and they will get their hands on whatever child support money they can get from the government, and whatever money their wider family gives them to support the kids. They will try to get their hands on all of it, and they will smoke it all up, and they have this their appetite for pot expands until it fits the budget available, which is all the money that they have. And so it becomes fairly obvious soon that these people are just destroying themselves and destroying everyone else's life. And so they make up this series of excuses. And that can be like, I need medicine, I need pot because it's a good medicine. And they start talking about, they don't talk clearly, they start talking hypnotically, as though about cannabis is a really good medical treatment, as though they're sick or something, but that's the implication. And they start talking about how cannabis is, and all the evil, how all the evil corporations hate cannabis because it's a competition for their monopoly. And this is conspiracy theories you hear from potheads all the time. And yeah, and what you hear a lot about is hemp. They talk about hemp all the time. The hemp is this beautiful, peaceful, environmentally friendly plant that can replace all the cotton in the world, and we wouldn't have all the terrible environmental degradation associated with cotton. We used to have hemp, and all the evil corporations banned hemp, and people, the government doesn't ban hemp because it's intoxicating. They ban hemp because it competes with nylon fibers. So there's this. So marijuana addicts don't want to realize they don't want to look like hedonists and selfish people. They want to look like heroes. So they make themselves out to be heroes. And they do this by inventing all these conspiracy theories. The hemp thing, I mean, no one uses hemp. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, I had a pair of hemp pants. And they weren't good. They were like a potato sack, a scratchy, itchy potato sack. Because hemp was really big 200 years ago. People used to grow millions of acres of hemp in America and Europe and Russia. All around the world, people used to grow millions of acres of hemp because it was used to make sails for sailing ships and ropes for sailing ships. And sailing ships are made out of wood, so you needed to caulk the sailing ships with oakum, which was rope, which is hemp. And there used to be this vast market for hemp fiber 200 years ago, but ever since then it's just gone down and down and down and down as less people have required it, and people have used cotton instead because it makes cotton shirts are softer and nicer than hemp shirts. But yeah, but this is pretty typical, I've noticed, of potheads, is they make up stuff like that, and they make up this whole mythology about the hemp industry. And I mean, you might find one, I don't know, in Australia, you might find in one hemp store. In the east coast of the US, you might find a hemp shop or something, but no one buys hemp. And so anyway, there's this whole bag of conspiracy theories about hemp, and it's this wonderful cure-all medicine that the corporations are trying to suppress. That's why they arrest everyone who smokes it. And there's this, it's the wonderful fiber savior of the planet that the government's banned because, it competes with big oil or something. But it's more crap. I mean, just a pothead talking about hemp, he's just like, it's just a really, at heart, it's just a lame, stupid excuse. No, Your Honor, I don't smoke marijuana. Those hemp plants in my backyard are to make sails for my yacht. Honest. And that's all they're doing. They are making up really stupid, transparent, lame excuses for what they're doing. So they can go and lie to themselves and go and lie to everyone else until people work it out and get sick of it. And that's what happens to basically potheads. That's what's common with potheads. Divorces. In middle age, I think what happens is their partners just eventually get so sick of this fiend in their life who's determined to get their hand on every cent they have and not pay rent not buy food, not pay the bills, not buy tires on the car, not put gas in the car. And the partners of potheads get so sick of this fiend that they're basically forced to divorce him. They have no other option, because the pothead fiend isn't going to buy food for the kids or school shoes for the kids or anything. So a lot of the partners of potheads are sooner or later forced to go back to their mothers or similar. And potheads being potheads, like having no mental acuity at all, they have a natural, normal human response to getting divorced, like bitterness and bad feelings and all that sort of thing. But they will not think about it for a microsecond and think that maybe what they were doing, maybe their lifestyle had something to do with it, and maybe it was their fault, and maybe no. So I've seen this a lot in potheads over the years, is they have unstable relationships because basically they're just selfish people, and their utter selfishness becomes, in spite of all their lies and excuses and crap, it becomes more and more and more stark, and just becomes more and more obvious and undeniable the more years you live with a pothead. That they're just people with the mind of a crocodile. There's only one thing, the only thought they have in life is to get their hands on more marijuana. They want to get their hands on family members' money, inheritances, annuities, and that sort of thing, and they're always trying to do that, and so they can get more money for marijuana. And it sounds like I'm saying that all the potheads I've known are just dirty, broke losers, but yeah, most of them are. And people say, well, there's this rich guy and that rich guy and this lawyer and that doctor and this engineer who are known to smoke pot, and rock star, successful rock star, who advocates smoking pot. But yeah, there's lots of rich people in the world. I've known lots of rich kids in my life, and they have annuities. They have, a lot of them have, their families are good with money. They have money. They have inheritances, they have annuities, they have allowances, and like a lot of rich kids, they get addicted to drugs because it's really easy. And they're bored, and they've got money, and there's no penalty involved. Like if a truck driver, a taxi driver, whatever, a machine operator, a guy in business who can't afford to take drugs because he can't afford to make mistakes and smash things and make errors, and truck drivers can't afford to crash their trucks, and taxi drivers can't afford to crash their taxis. And with a lot of jobs like that, there's drug tests and blood tests and urine tests these days. So a lot of poor working people can't afford to take drugs. But there's a lot of rich people with a fixed income, or they're independently wealthy with an income, and they can afford to take drugs because there's no real penalty. And if they can rent an apartment in town and sit around and just use their annuity to pay the rent and just sit around and get stoned day in, day out for years, there's no penalty associated with it. And so yeah, people a certain amount of income, financial income, from whatever source, They can afford drugs. But it's no different for them for anyone else. It makes them just as stupid as anyone else. The drugs have the same ill health effects that they have on everyone else. Wealthy drug addicts can overdose and kill themselves like anyone else can. They can, and they can get drowsy and drugged and make stupid decisions like anyone else can, like crash their car or whatever they do. And so in a way, there might be some wealthy drug users around, but that there's this thing that some potheads tell themselves is that pot's just a normal thing. Everyone does it. It's just a normal thing. It's just like having a beer after work in the bar. Everyone does it. Yeah, it wears off next morning. You go to work. So what? It's just this ordinary social chemical thing that everyone does, and it doesn't have any effect on anybody, or it shouldn't. And it's just normal. What's the big deal? And that's just something they tell themselves because potheads are just crazy like that. They just can't see some things. Like they can't see the vast amount of money they're spending. And I know a lot of guys my age have just looking back at their lives, just not going, what the hell happened? I mean, all their friends, all their straight friends have got houses and families and successful children and nice cars and accomplishments in life, and the potheads don't. They're working crappy jobs, they're unemployed, they're renting a crappy apartment, they're living hand to mouth, nothing ever changes, and it never occurs to them that if they spend the last 20, 30 years blowing $500 a week on just nothing for no reason, they're not going to have anything. They haven't paid off a mortgage, they haven't saved their money, built up anything like that. They haven't done that. And so, yeah, it gets stupider and stupider. The older potheads get, the more and more desperate they get to appear successful like normal people, and they start, borrowing money to buy fabulous looking consumer goods so they can look like they're rich, and big TVs on high purchase and whatever, like just stupid stuff. It goes on and on, but that's the problem with marijuana, and that's why you never want to go there, is because it's a trap. It's a trap, and a trap that prevents you from seeing it's a trap.